Hello and welcome to another edition of Scott Nagle's Tennis Tips. I'm Scott Nagle, bringing you a tip today from Richmond County Country Club in Staten Island. Today's doubles tip will be covering some of the better locations to hit your return to serve, your first volley, and the put-away volley. Most often, the server's partner is going to play up in the net in the same position I am in now, and it's important to keep that position in mind when hitting your return. Ideally, you're going to place that ball away, keep that ball away from the net player. Three choices in passing the net player are down the sideline, so in the doubles alley. I've placed a couple cones there to show where you might aim. Another place to pass the net player would be to lob the ball over their head where they could not go back and retrieve it as an overhead smash. However, probably the easiest and most common return is a cross-court return out of the reach of the volleyer and towards the target that I've placed on the side of the court. We're going to work a little bit on training your return so that you're constantly aiming this ball cross court and at the angle. It's a little bit easier on your forehand side using your forehand, but the shot should also be trained using your backhand and using the opposite angle when you're returning in the ad court. You might start with drawing a line on the court where you want your racket angle to be. I've drawn a line in the ground there where I want my racket angle to be at contact, and that should help me send the ball cross court. So start out with some easy serves that I can return quite easily cross court. So you can also see that I'm rotating my body so that my torso and my hips are aligned with the target that I'm looking for, which is that sharp cross court angle. My racket gets lined up there. The last thing is providing enough spin to control the power that I'm using. If I'm going to hit an aggressive serve return, I need to add a lot of top spin. Now, if I'm not hitting the ball as hard, I can choose to hit the ball either with a bit of slice or keep it fairly flat and hit the ball softly. It should go in at that angle. But it's nice to be able to go ahead and rip that forehand cross court with a lot of angle. You might want to check out my tennis video on hitting a sharp angle forehand, which covers more detail on how to hit this shot. It's important to practice this return of serve, the cross-court sharp angle, as well as the other returns we've talked about, the lob return and the down-the-line return. Practice these over and over again with your doubles partner, either feeding you balls or tossing you balls. Take a lesson in this technique as well. It's great to have a target to aim for. If I can be quite set up before the return, I can take my time and make sure that I'm really ready. It's not like a rally situation, so you can really train this shot. I also want to be able to train this shot on my backhand side and from the ad court as well, where I'm hitting my inside out forehand and my backhand cross court. Today we'll just demonstrate the forehand cross court ball and the inside out backhand. Enough practice on both the forehand and backhand should get me to be able to get my shot out wider. Next I'm going to demonstrate the down the line passing shot. It's important when trying to pass the net player that the ball is hit far enough in the doubles alley so it's not intercepted. We'll look at an example now of a ball that's not hit well enough up the doubles alley and one that is hit well enough up the doubles alley. Keep in mind that the net player is going to have to be responsible for covering both the cross-court ball, the down-the-line shot, as well as place shots over their head. So they're not always going to be covering the doubles alley as well as I'm covering it now. Next, we'll look at the topspin lob return or the flat lob return. Again, I will try to disguise this shot so that my doubles opponents aren't aware of when I'm hitting it. Next, we'll have a look at the overhead. First of all, an overhead smash. It's not high enough and over the player's head, and then a couple that are hit well enough that they clear the net player. As you can see, the net player trying to cover the down the line, the cross court, and the overhead can be quite challenging. So if you can place the ball far enough wide and high enough over their head, you'll be able to catch them off guard from time to time. It's a shot we want to use a couple times in a set, but the average shot you want to keep more cross court. Since we don't want to telegraph to our opponents when we're hitting cross court down the line or the lob, you want to do your best to disguise this shot, waiting until the last minute, do your best to hide this shot. This can be done by the body rotation, waiting a little bit longer on the rotation to take the ball down the line, not trying to show my stance too much. Also the lob, you don't want to very early on open up the string, so you might try to hide the lob looking like you're going to drive it, then open up the racket face for the lob, or even using a topspin lob. A little bit harder to do off a return of serve, but a topspin lob also has great disguise. Their cross-court return is what they're expecting the most, so keep them honest with a down the line return and a lob return at least a couple times a set to make sure they're not going to cheat over and poach your return. It's very challenging for the server to get the wide return if they stay back. So you can really push your opponent wide off the court, creating a lot of space for you to attack them with your own aggressive game coming to the net. Let's take a look at how this affects a server who serves and volleys. If you hit about 80 or 90% of your returns out wide towards the cone, mix in some of the lobs and some of the passing shots down the line, you'll give your doubles opponents a lot of difficulty. I've located the camera now in the position of the server who's been drawn out wide to deal with the cross-court sharp angle return. You want to imagine yourself moving back as a server back towards the middle of the court, and the first volley will be drawn back out wide. And so we call that wrong footing the opponent or hitting behind the opponent. As you can see, with the out wide first volley, sometimes you have to hit the ball a little softer, applying some backspin because you have a reduced amount of court. We'll also take a look at the first volley that'll be hit up the middle, and that will be when the service partner does not move over. And finally, if the service partner does move over, it leaves open that down the line shot, and we'll take a look at that first volley as well. When we pull the server off wide in the deuce court and the partner that's playing in the ad court does not move over to the middle, it leaves this center lane open. So we'll have this available to us on the very first shot. A bit safer play because there's a lot of court here to hit into, a lot of margin for error. We want to make sure that the net player does not shift over and cover this middle. So we're looking for less movement from this player. If they shift over to cover the middle, then that leaves it down the line. So when they don't shift, we'll have that down the middle shot open. As you can see with the shot down the middle, you can afford to hit a little bit more pace, be a little bit more aggressive because there's more room to hit the ball. Had some of those volleys been a little higher, a little closer to the net, they could be hit quite a bit harder and attack down the middle. Next, we're going to look at the scenario where the doubles partner shifts over, represented right now by the large cone. So the doubles partner at the net, the service partner, shifts towards the middle, leaving the doubles alley exposed. You'll see that I placed a cone here along the singles sideline. A little safer margin for error if we aim here. Provided we have enough room to aim down the sideline, we'll go for about here, leaving you about 4.5 feet of air room over here on the side if you happen to hit a little bit wide. If we aim too much for the doubles alley, it's quite often that you'll play the ball a little bit wide. Alright, so there's an example of how the service partner noticed a wide return and shifted over to cover the court. When they do make that shift, you're moving in behind your return to play the volley up the sideline, aiming for the single sideline so you have a good margin for error. As you can see, the difference between the forehand first volley can be a little straighter, a little stronger. However, some of those backhand volleys, I opted to play a ball a little wider because I wanted to again keep it away from the net player who might be shifting, perhaps even shifting back at that time. So you might pre-plan this. As I pull my opponent wide, I'm expecting either a forehand volley or backhand volley. You might pre-plan your second target as well. It's important to note that anytime I pull a doubles team wide, it's going to also create an angle for them. So me and my partner have to be aware of these situations. So as I move the server way off the court, it does increase their ability to return the ball wide back to me, and I have to keep an eye out for that. We should be shifting in the direction of the shot as we both advance towards the net, but keeping in mind that we may have to cut off the sharp angle coming wide. These 3 returns can be a great arsenal for your doubles team. Keep the opponents guessing what you're going to do. Stick with the return to serve cross court about 80% of the time. 10% of the time maybe down the line, 10% of the time lobbing over the head. Of course, adjust it according to how the match is going. For more information on covering the zones as a doubles team and shifting, check out my link here. Stay tuned for more tips from Scott Nagle Tennis, and we'll see you on the courts.